Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. I keep repeating that point because it is true. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And one of the reasons why we are a failed state is because we've been stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical Zanu PF dictatorship for 45 years and counting. What is so infuriating about that situation is that the people of Zimbabwe have risked all to fight for independence. One man, one vote was one of the key requirements in the fight for independence. But as we got nearer independence, Zanu PF, Robert Mugabe and these Zanu PF thugs betrayed the nation and shortchanged them. It's now 45 years since independence. One has got to ask, in that period, surely you must have had a chance to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. And the answer is yes, we did have a chance. The best chance of which was during the GNU of 2008 to 2018, when SADC, credit where credit is due, forced Robert Mugabe and his Zanu PF to sign the 2008 Global Political Agreement, which gave birth to the GNU. The primary purpose of the GNU of 2008 to 2013 was to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging elections. That was the primary purpose. And yet, not even one token reform was implemented. And you've got to look at all the MDC leaders who were in the GNU and ask them, why did you fail to implement even one reform? That was when those leaders sold out big time. I know millions of Zimbabweans out there have never understood that. But their failure to understand it does not change the facts on the ground. That is the truth. Worse still, ever since the GNU debacle, MDC CCC leaders have sought to mislead the people of Zimbabwe with one central lie, that we don't need reforms because they, the MDC CCC leaders, have devised ways of winning rigged elections. This has been a lie. And unfortunately, the people of Zimbabwe have not been smart enough to realize the lies. And so they've fallen for it. And they've been participating in these flawed elections, believing the lie. David Coltart was he was in fact the Minister of Education in the GNU, admitted in his book that the 2013 elections, which they participated in, were so flawed, so illegal, the logical step for them to have done was to withdraw from participating in those elections. Indeed, SADC leaders called a special summit in 2013, June 2013, in which they told Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends to their faces that if you participate in the coming elections, you will lose. They did not listen. And David Coltart explained why. As is stated in the quotation there that is showing below at the bottom of the screen, we could not withdraw for fear that the other side would participate and win all the seats. In other words, they continued participating out of greed. This has been the common theme. They've been participating in these flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy out of greed. Here is Tendai Biti. He too was a minister in the GNU. He was the Minister of Finance, explaining the process required from Mnangagwa to have his wish to stay beyond 2028. Let's just listen to him.
Of members of the National Assembly must approve. Okay. So this whole agenda of buying out members of parliament, of creating characters like Chabangu, is intended now to secure the 2/3 majority that is required. So that's in the National Assembly. It then goes to the Senate, where a similar process starts: first reading, second reading, and then 2/3. 2/3 of the membership of the Senate must vote. Once the bill has been approved by 2/3 of Parliament, that is to say 2/3 in the National Assembly and 2/3 in the Senate, it must then go to a referendum, because it is a bill altering term limits in the country. The referendum is a simple process, Baba. The referendum simply asks whether you are saying yes or no. Because we are going to campaign and live in the mountains to get that no vote. There's a second problem. The Constitution then says, when you change this Constitution and you remove the term limits, it doesn't benefit the incumbent. It benefits the next. It benefits the next. But you can change that provision. Same process. Yeah, we call it the Abdoulaye Wade provision. Because President Abdoulaye Wade amended the Constitution for a third time, and Senegalese said it can't benefit you. And he lost at that stage. And that's why President Sall came in, and as fat as yes, as you know, President Macky Sall also tried to change the Constitution to benefit him. Yet he came through a process of rejecting a third term agenda. That's why you can't trust people. But anyway, to come back to the legal process, another referendum is required now to change the constitutional provision that says you can't benefit. That's when we will see Trababala's true colors, because all along you'll be saying, I don't want Vandova Akuda. Now when he says, now the Akuda, the constitution has to go to a referendum for the second time. Baba, pakaipa. To sangana makomo. tosangana kwaTendai, tosangana kuDotito, tosangana kuEscotini,
Well. What Tendai Biti is trying to assure the nation there is that Mnangagwa will never win the 2 referendums. We have heard this argument before from the opposition. People were called to participate in the 2023 elections by Chamisa on the grounds that Triple C was going to win big. And he had devised ways to plug the vote rigging loopholes. He was so cocksure of that. There was no any chance of him going wrong there. He even started telling people that he was preparing for his cabinet, his new cabinet. And to tell the truth, people believed him.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifo iri. Plan ya Mwari haifo iri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
Some things never change. There, Nelson Chamisa was assuring the nation that he was going to win the 2023 elections. He had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. We are being told the same thing here by Tendai Biti. Mnangagwa will never win the referendum. Tosangana kumakome kochina kudotito esgodini to make sure that he gets a no vote. Well, the truth of the matter is Zanu PF has managed to rig elections for the last 45 years. In some of those years, they've done it with the connivance of Tendai Biti and company. First, they failed to implement reforms when they had the golden chance to do so. And then they've been assuring the nation that they will win rigged elections. Elections which even they themselves acknowledged were so flawed, so illegal, the logical thing to do was to withdraw. But they could not withdraw out of greed. And so they had to lie to the people why they are not withdrawing. Tell them, no, we are plugged vote rigging loopholes. We are going to win rigged elections. In the case of Zimbabwe, we have been very lucky. The 2023 were observed by both SADC and the AU. And both the AU and SADC condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. The question we've got to ask ourselves here is, why are we going into a referendum when we know the process is flawed and illegal? To go into those referendum on the basis of assurance from Tendai Biti that will get a no vote is the most idiotic thing we could possibly do. Because if we participate and Zanu PF rigs, as we know they are going to rig, as they've been rigging elections in the past, we will have no recourse. We participated knowing fully well that Zanu PF was rigging. Why did we? We also know Mnangagwa himself's position regarding SADC and the AU's condemnation of the Zimbabwe process. He doesn't care. He publicly dismissed their concern with contempt. Deja vu, he said. I think we need to listen to the voice of reason and do the rational thing for a change. Here is Mnangagwa condemning, or rather dismissing SADC's report condemning the electoral process in 2023.
Vana vakatuka Zanu PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vako vachikurumbidza nekuchikanganisa, ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa, farai, because you are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection anafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
So SADC and the AU are now our enemies. How pathetic is that? I think we, the people of Zimbabwe, the ordinary mortals, the ordinary povo, we need to reach out to SADC and assure them that they are not our enemies. To the AU, that they are not our enemies. We have never considered them to be our enemies. And most important of all, to listen to what they have to say. SADC and the AU condemned 2023 elections as flawed and illegal. If we participate in any referendum before those flaws and illegalities are put right, we only have ourselves to blame for it. And to participate on the basis of a sellout like Tendai Biti and his colleagues is the most foolish thing we can do. Tendai Biti himself should know that some of his own colleagues in the opposition are already campaigning for Mnangagwa. Here is David Coltart praising Mnangagwa. Apparently, government has approved this Glassblock Dam project, and he is so impressed that he is campaigning for hashtag Vision 2030. He wants Mnangagwa to stay in power to deliver this Vision 2030. For the sake of the record, Vision 2030 says Zimbabwe will be an upper middle income nation by the year 2030. David Coltart was Minister of Education in the GNU. then he was an MP, then he was a senator, and at the present moment, he is the mayor of the city of Bulawayo. He, of all people, should know that Bulawayo, like all other cities in Zimbabwe, the people of that city are living in abject poverty. Unemployment in Bulawayo is 80% plus, and has been for the last 20 years. There are potholes in Bulawayo. They've got problems with water, and no doubt Coltart thinks that this Glassblock Dam will improve the situation. With sewage, the health services have collapsed. Education, the same thing. What I am surprised here is that Coltart should be of the opinion that Mnangagwa will deliver Vision 2030, i.e. turn the city of Bulawayo into an upper middle income nation city, just because he's approved a Glassblock Dam. Beggars belief. But this is the same David Coltart, whose quotation I was showing you at the bottom of the screen earlier on, and I'm showing it to you now. He is the man who acknowledged that participating in these flawed elections was irrational, illogical, but they've been participating out of greed. He will participate in the referendum, knowing fully well that is irrational, but will do so out of greed. The people of Zimbabwe must wake up to the reality that we cannot keep on participating in a flawed process, which we know is flawed, which we know that by participating we give the process legitimacy. And which we also know that for the common people, we are only perpetuating our suffering. The referendum we are talking about here, if Zanu PF should get their wish, this will be probably the most damaging thing we have done in Zimbabwe. Because trust me, if Zanu PF wins the referendum, it effectively gives Parliament power to postpone elections. And this is not a one-off. If they postpone the 2028 elections, that power is not automatically taken back. They still have the power. They still can decide to postpone elections in future. Now that they've got the power, they can exercise it as and when they so desire. How anyone could let such an important decision be decided on the basis of an electoral process that is so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step is to withdraw. Beggars belief. So I come back to this point. The people of Zimbabwe must wake up to the reality that what we have got here is a serious problem, and we are not going to solve it by being naive and participating in a flawed process, which we know is flawed, which we know SADC and the AU have told us is flawed. Just because Tendai Biti said he can deliver the no vote would be the most irresponsible thing the people of Zimbabwe have done. We've done a lot of irresponsible things, but this is the most irresponsible thing. Because this referendum, this amendment, in terms of elections, would be the most far-reaching in its power. It will give Zanu PF carte blanche powers to postpone elections as they so wish. Are we really ready to do that? I repeat, the position, the rational position, is to demand that the process should be credible, a credible process. The flaws and illegalities in Zimbabwe's electoral system must be sorted out first before we have the referendum. If Zanu PF does not want to implement those reforms, then we are not participating in a referendum, which we know Zanu PF has got so much power to rig. And then if we should lose it, would have given it legitimacy. That position should not, we should never compromise on that. That should be our position and we should not change it. As for the reassurance from people like Tendai Biti, he can go to Chinambuya and Lotito himself. We are not participating in a legal and flawed process. That is the rational position. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.